Welcome to the 2025 Meet the FiReStarters panel. It's not a panel, it's a pitch session. So I am very excited to introduce you to our 2025 FiReStarter companies. These are companies that are using technology to change the world for the better in some way. There's a broad ecosystem of companies that have been FiReStarters in the past, and you'll see that the FiReStarters this year are no different. They are covering a wide range of topics, but they're all really incredible. So the way that this works is many of these companies are fundraising, not all of them, but many of them. And we will also be holding a reception this evening from, I don't want to misstate this, 5 to 7 p.m., right outside. There will be delicious heavy appetizers for dinner and a full bar. So we want you to have a great time talking to each other, talking to them, asking them any questions that you might have about their companies. And I would encourage you, if you're not yourself an investor, to think about who are the people that I know or the companies that I know that might be able to help these companies. FIRE is a community that succeeds when we support each other. We succeed because of the network that is here today, but also because of the network that's not here today. And so I just want to encourage everyone here to think of these companies. Our job as a community is to support these companies into the future. And for many of the reasons that we've talked about today and in general, the success of startups is not guaranteed, right? It's an extremely long and challenging road to be successful as a startup company, especially in some of these areas where the technology is new or innovative or harder to explain to people. And so I think it's important for this group to think of ourselves as we are joint shareholders in these companies, right? And so let us support their work today, but also in the future through connections and through your willingness to tell your friends about what they're doing and to help them make the world a better place. So we are going to start with a company that is very near and dear to my heart as an information warfare expert, Pendulum. So we'll be hearing from Mark Listis, who's the CEO and co-founder of Pendulum, and Sam Clark, co-founder and chief scientist. Pendulum Intelligence gives corporate communications, risk, and government intelligence teams an AI platform that delivers unmatched visibility into the video and audio platforms shaping brand and community perception, while detecting emerging narratives, providing the means to combat misinformation, and identifying the factors driving brand perception on video, audio, image, and text. Pendulum, take it away.
Amazing. Can I have the clicker? Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. Hey, Sam, Mark, thanks for spending a little bit of time with us. Thank you for having us. Thank you for supporting us. We're going to start off with a little bit of a story and maybe a bit of a dramatic image as well. It's a recent story. It's a story that we were involved in, and the story starts in February of 2025. In February of 2025, a Coca-Cola brand that we're very familiar with started to become the target of a mis and disinformation narrative that started to tear through a specific pocket of TikTok and YouTube. What was interesting at the time was that Coca-Cola is a brand that, under their own quote, has been dealing with boycotts as long as they have been handling bottles. Yet they were completely blind to this one. It grew like wildfire in certain pockets of the internet, and 10 days later they called us. Fortunately, we were able to help, but it was 10 days in and the damage was done. So we've been working with Coke for a bit to help reverse this and help get them back. But as you see here on the bottom right, this very dramatic number, Coca-Cola's CEO listed this as one of the most significant contributions to $410 million of revenue loss in one quarter.
Working alongside Coca-Cola, we tracked the growth of the boycott movement and found that it rivaled some of the largest boycotts of the last few years. This included Starbucks and the significant damage that was done with Gen Z for them, as well as Anheuser-Busch and the impact their boycott had on Bud Light, with it going from the most popular beer brand in the US to the 14th most popular. However, if you were just focused on coverage on news organizations or textual platforms like Twitter, this really wouldn't have registered as the seismic event it was. In fact, Coca-Cola in late 2024 had multiple boycotts that had similar volume on those platforms. The real driver in this case, though, as Mark just mentioned, was TikTok and YouTube. They accounted for 2/3 of the 160 million impressions that this call to boycott movement received.
So what's going on? We have a brand as old as time with the most resources that we could possibly imagine. How'd they get caught in the blind? The reality is that the world has changed. The way that information spreads has changed, and the way that influence spread has changed. Now, today, instead of a masthead with, say, 12 different publications with deep experts who are authoring different columns, who push out what the authoritative line of news is, today, we have a hyper-distributed information space. It's easy to build a social media platform. It's even easier to build a social media community. The platforms are incentivized to be able to help you grow that rapidly, and you get these little pockets of echo chambers. What we now have is a sea of small channels that are very self-referential. That's what happened with this ICE narrative with Coca-Cola.
You know, and we're not the first people to realize that the lack of tools to provide transparency into what is being discussed on these video, audio, and image platforms is a major gap for these organizations. And plenty of sales calls and processes we have with corporate communications teams, marketing teams, risk and intel teams, and so on, they highlight this as a gap. The reason this gap exists is that it's a hard technical problem. Unlike your typical text platforms, there aren't APIs that make it easy to track all the topic mentions that matter to you. And in addition to that, you can't just solve it with brute force. In 2024 alone, YouTube had 14 billion videos uploaded. At this scale, it's cost prohibitive for any organization to ingest and process all of this data. Our solution has been to get around this through a series of proprietary models that help us determine where to look. So instead of processing 14 billion videos, we still process hundreds of millions, but we process the ones that are much less likely to mention cat videos and much more likely to mention topics of interest to you that could impact your brand or societal issues, and in a way that would have been nearly impossible for you to identify otherwise.
So who are we and why are we here? I got my start in 2016 when I joined the government. I got drawn into a combating foreign interference in U.S. elections fight. I ended up being one of the small group of people who built all of the infrastructure protection systems for our U.S. elections critical infrastructure, and I spent a couple of years dipping and dodging and ducking away from the Russians. I then built defense tech for the Pentagon for a couple of years, and after that, we had spent 5 years with all of the resources in the world in one massive blind spot on video. We had never been able to solve it, and that's when I met Sam.
My connection to this problem actually goes all the way back to my university days. While in grad school, in the 2010 timeframe, I spent time doing natural language processing and machine learning research focused on Twitter. After spending some time doing more general machine learning work in industry, I decided to revisit social media processing in 2020, and I was particularly interested in what data there was on large video and audio platforms. I ended up being shocked to learn that despite YouTube having 5 times the number of users Twitter has, social media researchers still were primarily focused on Twitter, and I couldn't find the data on scale of various types of content that were important, like conspiracy content, that I expected. This led to me developing a method to discover and classify YouTube channels to help answer these questions, and later in 2020, right after the US presidential election, I partnered with another independent researcher, and we published a report on the scale of content pushing the narrative that election fraud impacted the outcome of the election, which ended up being covered in the New York Times and Washington Post and many other outlets, and showed there was a real demand for this type of content analysis on video and audio platforms. And following that, ended up exploring government and commercial opportunities for this, which is where I was connected with Mark.
Yeah, so we started a company. We started working together about 4 years ago. We got the company off the ground about 3.5 years ago, and we've been busy. We're a venture-backed startup out of Seattle. We are backed by some of the biggest name in B2B SaaS, and then we have also been an InQtel company, for those familiar with the intelligence community's investment strategy, since almost the very beginning. We're proud that today we're active, we're in use, and we're deployed at a lot of your favorite brands. A lot of the Fortune 500 companies that you will use today on your phone or buy products from in the next month use us to detect risk to their reputation, security threats to their executives, and help inform their strategies as we move forward. We also sell a white-labeled version of our product called Sonar through the biggest communications firm in the world, and we're very proud to say that we're actively deployed and in use for the U.S. Department of Defense and intelligence communities. Now, we're not done, so what's next? We started first by solving this problem on the bottom. Sam was just talking about our foundational data access. How do we bring to fruition what a fulsome single pane of glass looks like across video, audio, image, and text to bring all of the conversation we can discover online into one analytical surface area? Over the last 3 years, we've been focused on product or on level 2 here about building SaaS dashboards with AI analytics built in so you can move faster, detect risk and opportunity quicker. And now we're very focused on building AI agents, action-oriented agents that have already started to be deployed at some of those very large brands that are making teams about 30 times more effective on average. We've got a lot to talk about the agents. We certainly don't have enough time to talk about them here. And we wanted to leave you with a little bit of contact information. If anything that we've said has piqued your interest, do let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.